I hope everybody's paying attention to the stock market and the fact that it hit another all-time high this week. Did anybody else notice that? If you notice that, I hope you're not missing out on what's going on with the economy. It's been pretty powerful, pretty magnificent, and this is how people make money without going to work every day. All right, so here's the thing. What I want to do is first off, I want to start by letting you know I got a call last night, and it was from Claymation Dr. Boyce. And if you know Claymation Dr. Boyce, you know he's kind of a bastard. He cusses a lot. He's kind of a jerk, but he knows what he's talking about. He's pretty smart, and we've been friends for a long time. And I've known him since grad school. He was a year ahead of me, and kind of a mentor in a way, but just kind of a rough one. And so he said he had a message for today. He had some things he wanted to share. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring him in for a second. Now, I want to just warn you in advance that if you have kids and you don't want your kids to hear cussing, I tell him to stop cussing and he doesn't listen. He just cusses me out. So I don't want to get cussed out. So I'm gonna have to let him communicate in the way he communicates. And so we will do that. We will have an appearance from Claymation Dr. Boyce. He said he had to run to Taco Bell real quick, but he'll be back in a minute. I don't know who eats Taco Bell in the morning. Like it's kind of strange, right? But that's what he does, and I don't dare question anything that he does. All right. So with that said, another thing too is that also one thing you should know, in addition to the stock market hitting record highs this week, there is a trip the president is taking to China right now. And this is big because they're going to negotiate their trade deal and try to figure out if they can make a deal. You know, Donald Trump loves to talk about making deals. And if they are able to make a good deal, then that could be a big booster for your stocks. So keep an eye out on that as well, because there is a lot happening in the world that's going to affect your bank account and put money in your account or take it out. You saw I guess a week ago, it was pretty brutal. More bloodbaths will occur in the future. I just have to warn you in advance, let you know if you're investing, you will sometimes have dark days, but the good days outweigh the bad ones, and that's a sort of a different way of looking at money, right? A lot of times we get trained on, sort of expecting this false consistency in our money. We get trained on this sort of very docile, passive financial fairy tale. That's the way I would almost describe it. It's a docile, passive financial fairy tale because basically it's this idea that revenue and income is supposed to just come in easy and smooth and be consistent all the time, almost like an animal that's in a cage, and you know that you're going to get fed exactly 2.5 pounds of meat every day, and without exception, right? And you don't have to do anything to earn this meat. You just wait there, and the meat comes, and you eat, and there's no reason to grow or evolve or develop in order to go hunt for yourself. And there's no reward for the hunt. There's no reward for getting out and making things happen. There's no penalty for not getting up and making things happen. So the animal sits there and gets fat and just, sits and waits for the food to arrive. And I think that's how we're trained economically. Whereas there's another side of economics that says, maybe there's a little bit of a hunt. And the hunt isn't just about, sure, there is the threat of starving if you do it wrong, but there's also the reward of getting the benefit of extra work, right? When you put in that extra time, that extra labor, the ability to give yourself a pay raise just by, sacrificing a little bit more, working a little bit harder, being a little bit more creative, being a little bit sharper and more focused, and teamwork, things like that. And so there's different sides of that economy. But then also there's another way to kind of have the best of both worlds, in my opinion. In economics, they call that smoothing. Economic smoothing is where you go into this rocky space. Let's say you're an investor, entrepreneur, and you know you're going to have the ups and downs. Well, you can smooth sometimes. What you do is when times are good, you store your nuts for the winter. When times are bad, you go back to those nuts that you've been storing for the winter, so you still get to eat good, right? So you get the consistency that the lion gets in the cage, but also you've gotten the thrill of the hunt and the benefits of getting rewarded for your extra work. Remember that the thing about the American economy that's so terrible is that is that the people that do the most work in our economy, in our society, are the ones who get the lowest reward, right? The people that make the most money, the billionaires, the entrepreneurs, the investors, they're not doing the work. They're not paying the taxes. They're not making the sacrifice. They're not leaving their families every day. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a broke man. But I'm 54. I'm hoping that I would have something accomplished by this stage in my life. And I work at home. I work from my basement. The kids can come in and talk to me anytime they want. I don't have to go to a factory, right? Now, again, I had to plan for this, though. I had to prepare for this. I had to decide that this was what I wanted. So, again, not to say, and so I want to say that just before anybody starts putting somebody on a pedestal and disconnecting and saying, "Well, you don't understand because you're just a rich guy. You don't know what it's like to struggle. You don't know what it's like to go to work every day." And it's like, no, I actually kind of do. And I remember when I was 27 and I was in grad school, and I've been in school for so many years, and I felt just embarrassed that I was still in school and my friends were moving on with their lives. And I remember telling my mother, I said, well, I saw a quote that says that you spend a few years living like nobody else will, so you can spend the rest of your life living like nobody else can. And that was the motto I lived by. It was like, okay, I'm gonna make some sacrifices. I'm gonna do some things that are different from my friends. I didn't have a single friend anywhere who studied as much as I did. I didn't have a single friend anywhere who was in school for as long as I was. I didn't have a single friend anywhere who would go to the library on a Friday night instead of actually, instead of doing whatever people do on Friday nights. I didn't even know what people did on Friday nights. I kind of knew, but I didn't want to participate because I wanted to be successful, right? And I just sort of have this idea that, like, okay, if I make these sacrifices now, good things will happen long term. And I kind of just think that that's not a complex idea, right? You know what I mean? Making money or being financially comfortable is not something where it's like, oh my God, this is so complex, it's so difficult. It feels that way. I guess if you've never studied it, and I understand. But when I break it down for you, I hope that you understand that literally there's like two or three little different things that you can do that will make a massive difference. And that's really what I want you to center on, is not feel like you have to go through 80 years of training to understand all this. I kind of did all that, and I can pretty much tell you, like, just do this and this and this. And these are the three things rich people do that other people don't, and that's just what it is. All right, now I mentioned to you that Claymation Dr. Boyce was going to make an appearance. And again, cover your kids' ears because it's a Sunday. And I told him, I said, man, you can't be cussing on the Sunday. And then he cussed me out. And so he's a terrible person. But he does know his stuff when it comes to finances. And so that's why I let him come into class. So if you got kids, cover their ears because Claymation Dr. Boyce is going to break down the Federal Reserve. And he's going to do it in his own unique way. So give me a yes in the comments if you can hear it. And also, this video is on my Instagram. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance. So here we go. Claymation Dr. Boyce has something to say about the Fed and how the Federal Reserve plays a role in the big economic booms and busts that you see in our economy. So here you go.
The actual fuck is the Federal Reserve, and why does it keep wrecking your stock portfolio? The Fed is like the DJ of the economy. It controls the vibe by messing with interest rates and money supply, but sometimes it plays the wrong song and the whole dance floor catches fire. When the economy's too hot, prices rising, everyone's spending like crazy, the Fed raises interest rates. That's basically them saying, yo, chill out. Higher rates make borrowing more expensive, so people and businesses spend less. Stocks drop, housing cools off, and your 401k starts looking like a crime scene. When things slow down too much, the Fed cuts rates or prints money. Suddenly loans get cheaper, people start buying again, and the market starts throwing a party until inflation shows up like the drunk uncle nobody invited. Here's the truth. The Fed doesn't care about your feelings or your portfolio. Its job is to keep inflation low and jobs steady, not to make you rich. But every move they make sends waves through everything: your mortgage, your car loan, your savings, your stocks. So yeah, the Federal Reserve is the puppet master, and if you don't understand how it pulls the strings, you're just another dancer getting yanked around on the floor. I'm little Claymation Dr. Boyce, and never forget, I don't give a fuck. I love you, and I'll see you next time. What the
All right. So did everybody get the point? Were you able to hear that? Let me know if you're able to hear that, and let me know if you got the point. All right. So Claymation Dr. Boyce, thank you. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I'll send you your speaking fee in the mail. All right. So here's the thing. So with the Fed, what basically he was saying is that the Federal Reserve plays a big role in shaping the economy, and the Federal Reserve is there are lots of conspiracy theories out there about how the Fed was founded and why and all these other things. And most of the conspiracy theories point in a similar direction. And the direction basically says that there are rich people that want to control the economy and use the economy to their benefit. All right, so I want to ask y'all a question. How many of y'all believe that the Federal Reserve is there to benefit wealthy and powerful people? Give me a yes in the chat if you agree. Give me a yes if you agree that the wealthy people want to protect their wealth, that they use their power to do that. Give me a yes if you agree that the system is rigged. Give me a yes if you agree that the rich people on top want to stay rich and get richer and control the rest of the world. Give me a yes if you agree with that. And I say it that way because the answer honestly is no duh. Oh, yeah, of course they do. You know what, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, all these. If you read books about the Rockefellers and how they think, what you'll just find is that these are people that have a certain way of viewing the world that says, okay, I'm gonna go out here and get mine. I'm gonna fight for. I'm gonna compete for mine. I read the biography of John Rockefeller, and John D. Rockefeller's father was kind of a little bit of a scammer. He would kind of run around and tell lies, and he would sell stuff and use deception to get people to buy things. But he also scammed the family, at least the way the story's told. His son could not. He didn't feel like he could depend on his dad to really be there for him and his mother. So there was a lot of economic hardship, a lot of financial trauma that Rockefeller went through as a kid because his daddy was one of those fast talking snake oil salesmen. That's a great term, Kendall. Type people, right? So he had this shisty daddy. I ain't gonna lie, I don't know much about my daddy, but I wasn't real impressed with the guy when I met him. I ain't gonna lie. But so what that did for him was it created like this type of independence in the sense of saying, if I don't go out here and get it, ain't nobody going to give it to me. Right? I don't have any protection. I don't have a man guiding me or anything like that. And his mother was really religious. His mother was just like a really God-fearing kind of woman. So basically, early in his life, he was like, okay, at 12 years old, he's like, I got to start a business. I got to make something happen. I got to bring home some, money for me and my mother. And that survival instinct kind of led him to just have certain principles built around discipline, strategy, courage, your fearlessness. He knew how to package things in a certain way to make you buy into whatever he was trying to do, but it was more so about the accumulation of power, originally starting as a way just to protect him and his mother. But then eventually he becomes one of the most powerful men on earth. And so of course that power starts to expand into a lot of different areas where he's just becoming a wealthier version of what he already was. And we've talked about this, that the money doesn't change you. Money just makes you more of what you already are. So he was already a guy who he didn't waste resources because he was poor. He didn't waste opportunities. He was always sort of looking ahead and strategically preparing for the future because he knew that nobody was coming to save him. So again, I don't know if Rockefeller is a good man or bad man. I don't even know if there is such a thing, to be honest with you. I don't really. I think it's context, right? But at the same time, if you really study these individuals, you'll find that yeah, they were like, yeah, I'm gonna protect me and mine. I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna make sure that my wealth grows. So the Federal Reserve pretty much benefits rich people very directly. Even when you talk about the manipulation of inflation, inflation doesn't hurt everybody. There are lots of people who benefit tremendously from inflation. The question about inflation is if the price of things go up, am I an owner or am I a consumer? If I'm a consumer and the prices go up, then I'm screwed. But if I'm a producer and the prices go up, then I win. And if the prices of what I sell go up higher than the prices of what I'm buying, then I'm going to make a net profit. I'm going to win, right? So okay, the price of carrots went up by 10% at the grocery store, but my real estate values went up by 20%. So what do I care about the price of carrots, right? And I'm not saying that this is something just to sort of brush off or that it's not important. I'm not saying that it's ethical at all. I'm not saying this at all. I'm talking about this is how it works, right? So the Federal Reserve pretty much has two mandates, and the two mandates are to keep full employment and to keep inflation low. And there are debates about what their inflationary target should be. And right now, the big debate is whether or not the Trump tariffs are gonna push inflation so much that they actually can't deal with the failing economy. They can't. So typically when the economy starts to slow down, what they'll do is they'll pump up the economy a little bit by lowering interest rates, which lowers borrowing costs and kind of gives like the economy a jump start. The problem with the jump start though is that it can cause more inflation. Like you're deliberately inflating the economy to make things go a little bit faster. And the challenge with that, though, is that some have believed or argued that the tariffs that the president put in place are going to cause unnatural inflation. So who knows? I don't know where that's going to go. I just know that when the Fed talks, people listen. And at least for the last 20 years, it's been to the point where they get to decide um, which direction the economy is going to go. It's completely managed. They will always do things that somehow end up pumping up the stock market, which is why those of you who've been invested in the stock market are making money so easily, while you got just this underbelly of millions of people that have to go to work and make their money every day, and maybe they haven't thought about the stock market, or no one pushed them to do it, or they just chose not to, but they're the ones kind of fueling it all. And eventually, what's going to happen is they're going to run out of fuel. Like eventually, consumers are going to get tired, workers are going to get tired, renters will get tired of the rent going up, and then all that's going to kind of crumble over time. It's going to struggle. But for right now, there are people that are sitting on top that are the owners and the producers, et cetera, that own the stock like you all do. Most of you are stock market participants, and you've seen this year. I rarely run into any of you that haven't made a lot of money this year in the stock market. That makes me very happy. And then my job is to let you know that next year may be a bad year. You don't know what next year is going to hold, so you just have to make sure that you're prepared, right? Count your blessings, protect your blessings, and then go out and go get more. Um, so speaking on that, one more thing I wanted to mention too was I watched a movie last night with my wife that really made me think about wealth and money in a really interesting way. It's a movie with Demi Moore. It's called The Substance. Has anybody heard of this movie? It's on HBO Max. It's called The Substance. How many of you, anybody seen it? Anybody happen to hear about it? See a trailer for it? Woo! This movie was so wild. It was so wild, and it made me think about um, money, fame, dopamine, everything else. And so here's how the story went. So basically, there's this lady who's like kind of an aging superstar. She was loved by everybody, and she had a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And but she was over 50, so her career was kind of dwindling a little bit. She wasn't the young hot woman that she was, 20 years ago, and there was talk about replacing her because in Hollywood, when you hit like 35, that's when they start saying, okay, you're done, we're going to recycle you and bring in somebody fresh and new. And that can be hard. That's not fair. And it happens to women more so than men. And it's not right. But still, this is what was going on. So she ends up finding out about this thing called the substance that she could inject in her body that would create like a younger clone of herself, right? And this clone came out of her body. Like she literally goes through this process of kind of giving birth in a way but it comes out of her back, and it ends up being like an 18-year-old version of herself. So she's young and beautiful, and the men are gazing at her, and she's getting all this attention that she used to get. And so while the clone is out living her life, the other version of her other older woman body is like she puts it in a closet somewhere, right? And the rule is that you have to switch each week. That you're still the same person, but you have to switch. So she would have to go from one week being the young version, and the next week being the older version. The next one week being the young, next week being the older, right? So she had to get her. She started her career, and she goes back and goes to Hollywood and becomes this massive star. And she tells them, "I can only work once, every other week because I got to go check on my sick mother or something." That's what she makes up a story. So this the way the story gets interesting is that it's one of these things where every day there's like a procedure where she gets to draw 7 days worth of vitality from the old body, and put it into her young body, and stay young and beautiful. And when she doesn't do it, bad things happen. Her nose starts bleeding, she starts to fall over, she can't function, like almost like Cinderella turned into a pumpkin. So one day she gets to the point where she's having so much fun being young and free and everything else, and living the life of a superstar, and she's about to sleep with some hot guy or whatever that she likes, and she's also kind of drunk. But her time's running out, and she's like, damn, like I don't want to go back to being the old me now. Like I want to be the young version. So she sucks out like another day's worth of vitality out of her older body, just so she can have another day of being young or whatever. And then what happens though is every time she sucks out the vitality from the older version of herself, her older body gets older. Like so when she wakes up as the older version, she finds like she's really wrinkled like in her hand, and she's like, what the hell had just happened, right? And so long story short, the way it kind of ends up going is each time the young version of herself gets more and more addicted to the attention and the fame and the youth and the beauty, that she keeps drawing more and more and more and more out of her old body, to the point where her older body just starts to look old and decrepit, like a 150-year-old woman, right? And then each time she wakes up, it's really interesting because even though it's the same person, she almost feels like she's a different person. Like she'll wake up and be like, "Oh my God, what happened to my apartment?" There'll be beer bottles everywhere and all kinds of. She's like, "What the hell?" Right? So she starts. So the older version of herself gets depressed because of what the younger version of herself did. She can't walk anymore. She's like this old lady, and so she's feeling bad. So she just starts eating like stress eating, like all this food because she can't handle being like old and unattractive, right? Because she can't go outside like she could when she was the young version, right? So then like the young version of her wakes up and looks around and sees like chicken bones and candy bars and all kinds of stuff like all over the apartment. So they start to fight. They start to like kind of have a conflict, right? Between the younger version of herself and the older version. Does this make sense? Are y'all following the story? Right? So it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, where literally even though it's the same person, it's like she's mad because so she calls the person that gave her the substance, and the guy just answers like this monotone, like yes. And she's like, this bitch, she every time she just eats all this food and destroys the house. She's destroying my life. And he's like, you are one. You are the same. You are one person. Right? That's what he keeps telling her. And then the older one, the older one will be like, she's ruining my life because she keeps taking energy out of me, and every time my body's falling apart, and I don't know what this blankety blank is doing, right? But it's the same person, right? So Alicia, my wife, of course, she's a subconscious mind expert. She's into that. So what we were kind of interpreting this movie to represent is like the public self and then the shadow self, right? And they say the brighter the star, or the brighter the light, the bigger the shadow becomes, right? So you have kind of like the public persona of like trying to be something, right? Like trying to show off for other people, trying to be young and beautiful, trying to pretend to be rich, trying to be successful in your career. But then there's always like this sacrifice that's being made, right? In the background. Do you understand what I mean? Like there's always like this trade-off, this compromise. And the whole time, the guy on the phone, every time he would say, you must keep the balance. You must keep the balance. So, but the thing was that because she became so addicted to being young and beautiful and famous, she lost balance. She just got to the point where she was like, you know what? I don't want to ever go back to being this old lady. So she kept sucking out the vitality from the old lady, and so she didn't do 7 days. She would do like 7 months. Right, to the point where she couldn't suck anything else out of her, and then eventually she had to switch. And the old lady woke up, and her body's just like torn to pieces and decrepit and everything else. And it reminded me two things. It reminded me one of that story I told you about Dorian Gray, the guy who made the deal with the devil, and he could stay young and handsome and have whatever he wanted, but his soul would be kept inside this painting and become corrupted because he was kind of getting whatever he wanted. But then the other thing was when he kept saying keep the balance, it made me think about a lot of people I know. I've known people that are famous and rich or highly successful in their careers, maybe NFL stars, where there was an addiction to some goal, something that you wanted in life. It was money, maybe you want to win a Super Bowl, maybe you want to become famous, and then the loss of balance where you're not investing at all. You're investing everything into this goal, but you're not investing in your family. So your family becomes just decrepit, it falls apart. You're not investing in your health, right? There are lots of Hollywood superstars that look amazing on the outside, but they're drug addicts, and you just got all this chaos going on in the background, right? That shadow self, that darker self. And what it really makes me think about is something that we've always talked about. We've always used words in class like balance and options, right? Just keep your options open, always have options, but always have balance. And when you talk about that balance issue, that's something that America doesn't really promote very much. We don't really promote balance. If you like an example, you think about some 25-year-old that's trying to win a Super Bowl, he doesn't care about the fact that he might get enough brain damage to the point where he has to be an old man at the age of 35, right? That's what this movie made me think about. Or you think about this person that wants to work so hard to appear successful that they sacrifice and do unethical things to to people around them or to their own lives or ruin their finances so they can drive a certain kind of car or whatever. And a lot of that is balance, right? So what this movie was kind of saying is that there's like the side of you that's public, the side of you that's professional, the side of you that's the high achiever, but then there's the other side of you that the public may not see. The other side of you that lives with you in the dark, the side of you that isn't for public consumption, but that side of you has to be healthy as well. And what happened was that she ends up, and this is hugely metaphorical, she ends up getting into a fight with her other self and killing the shadow self. She just kills her, right? And so a lot of people I've seen where, especially those who are cursed with fame and fortune and success, high levels of success, they have a shadow self that is just torn apart and decrepit. Like an example might be Michael Jordan. I don't think Michael Jordan likes himself that much. I really don't. I think deep down, I think Michael Jordan has demons that he doesn't ever that he'll never face. And I think that he's paid a big price to be Michael Jordan. I don't see him as a balanced, healthy person that's like, yeah, you know what, I went into my dark spots and I thought about who I really was and I really like who I am. No, I don't see Jordan like that. I think Jordan deep down just I think there's a reason why he's holding the liquor bottle, got yellow eyes and everything else, because I feel like there's a price he paid for all this Jordan is the success that he gets. Everywhere he goes, he gets treated like the Pope, and he's got more money than God, it seems like. But I think that there's a big price you pay for that, and so I would almost say that this is why things like therapy can be beneficial because then you're able to at least make sure you're clear as you get exposed to the drug of money, particularly money or success, that you're able to not let the drug cause you to disconnect from the core of who you are, right? And this is what happened in this movie. She was so it was like a drug binge. Like she would go and just be all this dopamine from being young and beautiful and famous and loved by everyone. And then she would wake up as the other version of herself and say, I can't believe this lady did this to me. Look at what she did to me. And they were like, what? And the guy was like, you're the same person. It's not somebody else. And I want you to think about it. Think about it like this. Here's another example to kind of look at it. Have you ever seen a guy who has like seven babies mamas and he's like crying because he can't pay his child support? Has anyone ever seen that? Like, or some dude, I knew a guy that had 27 kids and he was a victim in his own mind. He was like, oh my God, like how the hell am I gonna pay child support for all these kids? And I was like looking at him like, dude, you act like somebody else had sex with all those women. You act like somebody else did that to you. Did somebody else get them pregnant and pretend like it was your baby? And is that because that's a crime? They should be punished for that. That's illegal, you know. But it's weird. Like he would talk as if somebody else did it. That's exactly what this movie was talking about, right? It was like she was like when she was the young successful version of herself. It was like going on a drug binge or getting drunk or something. And then you wake up and you're like, oh my God, what did I do last night? Right. And so consciousness, another part of consciousness is being aware of all the different sides of who you are so you can make sure you have the balance. And money's a big part of this because remember, I've mentioned this several times that money affects the same region of your brain as cocaine. So money affects your brain like a drug. So if you get too caught up in the money and the success and the career and all this other stuff, and that's really gonna just make everything wonderful. No, it won't. Take it from somebody who knows. Man, the trade-off. I've seen people get so caught up in their careers that they would like be like, I don't have time to have any kids because I want to get this promotion. And it's like, okay, now you're 48 and you ain't got no kids. And you did that. Why? Well, because you wanted to impress your boss, because you wanted a really good job. I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm just saying I don't understand that trade-off. I imagine your kids are more important than that job. but somebody convinced you that the job is more important than your own children. I don't. That's capitalism. That's capitalist pimping. That's what capitalism does. Um, Will Smith was talking about Will Smith is just great because he just I like Will Smith. I know people make fun of him and stuff, and he's a trooper. He's dealing with it, you know. But Will Smith, wise guy. I told you I never met Will. I met his brother Harry, and we talked for hours because we had such great. He was such a smart. They have a smart family, and I liked when he was talking about his lack of balance and the price he paid for that. He said, when I was in my 20s, all I cared about was being the biggest star I could possibly be and making as much money as I could be, and I gave my family whatever time was left. I was like, well, whenever I get time, I'll spend time with my family. And he said, when you are obsessed at that level to be that excellent at something, there is no time left. There is nothing. You give everything. Just like in that movie, she was taking everything from her shadow self, from the other part of her life to try to become the best version of herself that she could be, right? And he said, that's why I got a divorce. That's why my family fell apart. That's why I had these problems, right? And what he learned over time was you have to have some balance. And so if you're gonna be, I think that if you're ambitious, you shouldn't just be ambitious like when it comes to like one thing or like your career, but I think be like picking like 4 or 5 things that really matter for you, 4 or 5 things that can define your life in a balanced context, and be really ambitious about those 4 or 5 things, right? Like I got kids. I'm ambitious about making sure my kids are loved and raised and nurtured to the best ability possible. So when I'm focused on that part of my life, I'm going to read the books. I'm going to take the classes. I'm going to spend the time. I'm going to give the encouragement. I'm going to give the training because this is important. This is part of my life portfolio, right? What else? I want to also be healthy because if I get old and fat and sick, then Big Pharma is going to come along and take all the money I made anyway. So to protect my wealth, I'm going to make sure I go to the gym and go, run a 5K every now and then and do some jumping jacks and do things that are going to keep me healthy, so that I don't just lose everything to Big Pharma, because it doesn't make sense to acquire all that wealth just so they can take it all back, right? And so in that area, I'm going to be really ambitious. And then you make room for the wealth drive, like the paper chase, right? Money's fun. Money is so much fun. I'm telling you, I've had some and it's nice, man. I stayed at the I'll see this bottle. This bottle here is this you can't see it, but there's a little logo. It says Waldorf Astoria. Has anybody ever stayed at the Waldorf? Oh my God, I stayed at the Waldorf. I'd never done it before. And I just saw that big, pretty building. I said, I want to stay there, man. I want to go to. And I went there, and let me tell you, that place is, first of all, it's the most expensive shit I've ever, like, I've stayed in a lot of hotels in the course of my life. When I would get invited to speak places and stuff, I've seen some pretty amazing stuff. But like the Waldorf, I looked at the cost and I said, "Oh my God, this is insane. Who pays this much to stay in a hotel?" But I did it. I did it because I was like, I want to have this experience. And there's a rich history and all this other stuff. Like I watched a whole documentary about Conrad Hilton and how he built his Hilton empire. And he wanted to get the wall. He had a picture of the Waldorf Astoria on in his office, and it said the greatest of them all. And that was the hotel he wanted to acquire. That was going to be his big prize. And let me just tell you, it was an amazing experience. And what separates places like the Waldorf is like the customer service. Like they will literally do whatever you need them to do, like when you need them to do it. I never I asked the lady at the desk, I said, "Where's the bathroom?" She said, "Let me walk you to the bathroom." And the lady walked me to the bathroom. I thought she was gonna go in with me. I was like, "Are you gonna wipe me?" I was like, "Well, you can't do that. That's nasty." And so anyway, but it was like that. Like I was like this, and I told Alicia, I said, "This lady walked me to the bathroom. Like who does that?" So anyway, so money is cool, right? My point is to say money is cool. I hope you have lots of it. I want you to be blessed with it. But I want you to really understand the balance piece, because what happens if you don't have balance is that you get a lot of money and you have nothing to invest in, right? Like if you get a bunch of money and nobody loves you and because you haven't nurtured any relationships, and there's nothing in your life that's meaningful outside of your career, then what are you gonna do with all that money? I mean, what are you gonna do? Go buy another car? Well, that's gonna wear off. All the studies show that the acquisition of material possessions does nothing for you after you've had like some nice stuff. You get about 2, 3 cars, then you start getting bored. It doesn't have the same effect. Um, you can buy another house, take another vacation. All that gets old. Every bit of it. Every bit of it. Deion Sanders is a great example of that. Deion Sanders, was making millions of dollars playing for the Cowboys, had the biggest contract I think ever signed by a Cowboy at the time because he was that great of a player, and he was suicidal. Like why would you want to take your own life if you have everything that everyone dreams of? Well, because money without a purpose is very empty. It's a very empty experience. And so that balance kind of allows you to have purpose. You know, if you got this extra interest, this all these other things that drive you, you got family, you got your church maybe. Some people, Dion found his purpose with church, right? And so you have these other things, this balance. Then what happens is when you get the money, you're like, oh, I know exactly what I'm gonna do with the money. I'm going right down to the boys club and I'm gonna make sure that I get them a new bus and a new whatever, right? And so money really does become kind of the tool that can be used to accelerate a purpose and also enhance these other areas of your life that are so important, right? So I want you to have money, but really I want you to have consciousness of all the things that money can do other than just go buy a new Lamborghini. Because that's just not I could probably buy a nice I could buy with it I could buy almost every kind of car I want, but I don't care about that stuff. I don't care. I think the cars are interesting and cool, but I'm like I know I went to this Mercedes place and I saw like this Bugatti that was like $250,000 and I was looking at it, I said, wow, what a pretty car. And I was walking up and I was like just kind of looking in the window and I got in the driver's seat and the dealer's like, so you interested? You know, and I'm like, no, you're wasting your time, dude. Don't even talk to me about this car. Because I've got so many other things that I would use $250,000 for that are more meaningful to me than buying this freaking car. I'm like, I'm gonna try. I mean, it's like and my neighbors would probably laugh at me, right? So, but it wouldn't matter. That's not even why. I just wouldn't like why. Why? I like my car. I get no more additional satisfaction from that. But that does over time. I think that requires a certain amount of emotional awareness to be able to even know that about yourself, right? So this is another thing, and this is the advice I would give young people too, is get to know who you are. Like really get to know who you are in the dark when nobody's looking and be okay with that person. Like really get to know that person and what really makes that person tick. What makes that person happy? What makes that person content? And when you get to know that, then what'll happen is you'll spend less energy trying to show off for the world. You know, you'll know exactly. You'll say, "Oh, I know exactly what I'll go home, make me a bowl of ice cream, turn on some Netflix, call up my girlfriend, just whatever, right? Just, you'll kind of know these little basic things that'll create happiness instead of falling for the illusion, which is that having a whole bunch of money is the key to everything. And that's the Instagram culture too. The Instagram culture, I think, makes a lot of young people feel really bad about being thorough human beings with substance. Everything is so shallow now. Everything is so superficial. Everything's about what somebody looks like, what somebody's driving, what kind of house they're living in, how much they have in their bank account. And I just think that is so sad. I feel really sad. I feel really bad for people that are constantly showing you what they have because really when you constantly keep showing me what you have, you're really showing me what you don't have, right? Does that make sense? Like when you're showing me what you have, like I'm like, oh, there's a reason why you feel like I need to know that you have $500,000 in your bank account. Like there's a reason you need me to know that you drive a certain car, you live in a certain house, or you went on a certain trip, or you know, and that to me speaks to something else that might need to be worked on, and that's really important because I can tell you when you do have money and you have been sort of fulfilled and self-actualized and you feel courageous and you have a purpose. Like purpose is everything. In fact, I feel really bad when people don't have a purpose because purpose if you don't have a purpose, it's really hard to even get out of bed in the morning. Like in fact, if you ever want to live and be in a living hell, um, it looks like heaven at first, but it's really hell. Get to the point where you have a lot of money, but you have no purpose. Or examine people that have a lot of money, but they have no purpose. They a lot of times what they'll do is they'll sit around and do things that are pleasure seeking behavior. They'll sit around and maybe have sex all day or use drugs all day or whatever. And they're doing this because they're taking these little hits of dopamine to try to keep themselves stimulated, give themselves something to live for, something to look forward to. And the problem with that is that you become immune to that. And there are a lot of celebrities like that for example, I remember, a big chunk of my life. I remember a time where it was really hard to get a girlfriend. Like I had to work hard. I didn't know anything about girls. I had to really, and I'm 5'8", so I wasn't tall. I didn't have no money. So I had to work. I had to be nice to girls, right? Like I didn't know all this like pimping and game, all this game guys talk about. I didn't know nothing about that. But then I would see people who are celebrities where, you know, getting a nice girlfriend was not hard at all. Like because there was an endless supply, endless stream of women that want to sleep with singers and rappers and stuff like that. I don't understand that from a mathematical standpoint because I'm thinking about STDs and all that stuff. Like, why would you sleep with somebody that slept with 8,000 people? But whatever, people do it. I don't care. And and what you will see is that in many of those cases, those individuals end up having some sort of like crisis where they're like, wow, all these things that I used to really want and love are now readily available to me. So there's no excitement anymore. There's no excitement about meeting another pretty girl or staying in a nice hotel. And Kevin Costner, when he gave advice to Tiger Woods, that's what he told him. He said, never get to the point where you can stay in a luxury hotel and not be excited about that room. He said, because it's really depressing when you get to that point where there's nothing that all the things you used to want don't do it for you anymore. And in fact, I remember LL Cool J. People miss this. This is in his book. I like LL. I never met him. I don't know him. I just talked to him on the phone one time. He called me because Russell Simmons told him to call me about something. And he's smart, very smart guy. I like celebrities that pay attention. Like he asked my advice about something. I told him what to do. He did it. It worked, and I like when people listen. But I remember in his book there was something about like sex where he said I would sleep with anything, something like anything or anyone or something like that. And he didn't even specify gender, which made me say anything. Anything's a big word. Like that's pretty broad. Anything, right? And but you've heard that with a lot of celebrities. So to me that's how drug addicts become, right? And so find your purpose. And in fact, actually they said that, check this out, this was interesting, they did this experiment with mice, and they found that what they would do with the mice is they would give them water that had heroin in it, right? So of course the mice loved the water was great because you got heroin, you're gonna feel good every time you hydrate. And so the mice would, just drink the heroin water and sit around and get high all day, right? Because I mean, what else was there to do? But then what they did was the same experiment. They took another group of mice and they still gave them the water with the heroin in it, but they gave them activities. They gave them things to do. They gave them like a whole little park to run around in and stuff, these assignments, and I don't know what the mazes to kind of run through and all that. And do you know what happened? The mice in the second category were far less likely to drink the heroin water. And so the interpretation that I saw with that was that if you look at people that have a purpose, that have something to do, something like my purpose is my kids. I got to go to work. I got to get to the church. I got to do this work with the community center. People that have a purpose are less likely to sit around and engage in pleasure seeking behavior than people who have nothing to do. Right. So when they say an idle mind is the devil's workshop, I think that's what that means. I talked to a cop once who told me that when his wife left and his kids were gone and his family was gone, he had no purpose. So he said, I became an extreme alcoholic because there was nothing to do except sit around and just drink all day. And the dangers that you see, just one of many examples in terms of dangers for black men, is that you live in an economy where the white man decides what your purpose is going to be because the white man controls your job. So what happened was I met a black man one time. He was an amazing guy. He was my driver. I spoke for the what was the organization? It was the National Black Chamber of Commerce. And a guy named Ron Busby was the president. And I really liked Ron. He was a great guy. And I was riding in the car back to the airport, and the driver of the car was a guy who was an entrepreneur. And I said, so what do you do? Like, tell me about your business. Tell me about you. And he said, I don't have a profession. I just make money. I said, really? I said, okay, so tell me more. So you know what he said? He said that in the 1960s, when he was growing up, he said, um, a lot of the men in our community used to work at the steel mill. My father worked at the steel mill with them. And suddenly all those jobs just were gone. They all disappeared. And he said, so then all the men didn't have anything to do. And he said that's when the wino came along, the guy who would just sit around and drink wine all day because he didn't have a purpose anymore. Right. And so he said, I learned from that. He said, from that experience, I said, I will never be in a situation where somebody can just take away my purpose and ruin my reason for living and thriving. He said, so I decided at that time, I'm never going to get a job. I'm going to learn how to make some money. So he was hustling in 1,000 directions. I mean, the car that he was driving me in was his limo business. He had a car washing service. He did all kinds of, he had about three, four businesses he was running because he said, I learned how to make money. And I heard that statement from him and I said, man, I think, in my opinion, I remember thinking this is exactly what every black boy and girl should be trained to do from birth. Don't just learn how to get a job, learn how to make some money. Learn how to make money. If you learn how to make money, then your job might be the best way for you to make money. And if that's the case, then great. But there's a bunch of other ways to make money besides that job. And the reason it's dangerous to only know how to make money through a job is because if they take the job, then they can be taking away more than just your money. And they're taking away your financial security. They're taking away your peace of mind. They're taking away your sense of purpose. They're taking away your sense of purpose. Like it's like, oh well, now I have nothing to do now. What am I gonna do? Oh well, let me just smoke some weed while I'm sitting around doing nothing. Let me drink some liquor. Let me go and do right. And so never let anybody steal your purpose. Your purpose belongs to you. You should shape what your purpose is going to be. And if you want my 2 cents, this is my 2 cents. I don't, I hope it's okay if I'm sharing this perspective. I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm not here to be judgmental or self-righteous. But if you want to look for your sense of purpose, typically you can find them in at least three major areas: your health, your wealth, or your relationships. Right? So maybe a person, your sense of purpose, I think that having a black family should always be a greater purpose than a damn job. I don't know who switched that narrative, but raising a healthy, intelligent black child or raising four or five of them is a greater contribution to your community than you going to that damn corporate job ever could be. And no disrespect to people who are doing whatever they're doing, but come on, man, are you kidding me? Like we really believe that that mother who's making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for six kids isn't adding more value to society than the person who just goes and delivers packages all day. I'm not saying that the package deliverer is not important, but my God, a good mother is not just important, but it is absolutely essential. That is literally the most important job a human being can have in our society. If mothers quit their job, then all society crumbles. But we can live without package handlers at UPS. No disrespect, but that's just the reality of it. So let's keep the main thing the main thing. What else could be your sense of purpose? Maybe you find some things related to your physical health. Maybe you start, you spend some time in the gym and all that stuff. Maybe you find things in your community, your church, your community center. There's so many, like the black community. One thing we have is we have a lot of kids that don't have mentorship. They don't have guidance and love from older black people who can say, "Hey, call me if you have a question," or "Hey, I'm here for you. Let me know how I can help," or you know what I mean? Like I don't think that that is really embraced in the same way that it should be. I think that we sometimes there are lots of people who do that, but some of the internet chatter about sort of looking, for example, if you're dating and you're young and the woman has kids, some guys are like, "Ugh, those kids, oh God, yuck," whatever, right? Because they I can't have sex with you as much because you got those kids in the way. I kind of just think that that is not the appropriate way to approach that. I think an appropriate way would be to say, okay, I don't know if I'm in a position to take care of kids. I don't know if I'm interested. I don't know if I'm ready. Whatever. I get that. But when you talk about children like they're some sort of cockroach or they are just a virus or they are a liability, I think that's a curse that comes back to haunt you because eventually you get old. And then eventually those little kids grow up. And actually, what you're seeing a lot of times now is when you have so many celebrities that weren't balanced in their trade-off. They gave everything for fame and fortune. So they didn't, they'd have a, 3-year-old baby with some lady and ignore the baby for 20 years. Then the baby grows up and the baby learns how to use Instagram. Next thing you know, the baby's on Instagram talking about what a terrible person you are. And you're trying to fight with your child on social media because you never really took that time to want to even be with them. You didn't see the child to be an asset or an investment. You saw it as something that wasn't important because they didn't fit into the narrative of fame and fortune. But the fame and fortune for some of these celebrities maybe it lasted 5 years, 10 years back in the 1990s, and you thought you would be young forever. Now you're not young forever. Now what do you go? Now you're 60. What are you going to do as a 60-year-old? What are you going to do? I saw this interesting this crazy verses this week. Did anybody else see it? No Limit versus what the other one, Cash Money Records. And I love that because I got friends in New Orleans. D1's one of my best buddies. He just did a great song with Juvenile, by the way. You should go check it out. It was a really good song. And I was just watching this and I was kind of laughing. It was cool, it's like nostalgic. It's like, yeah, na 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 na, right? But it's also funny to me because it's like, man, these guys are like 60. And I just think it's hard to be 60 and act like you're like 22. I just think that that's hard. I just think because you're tired, you got gray hair and all that stuff. And I'm just curious to see how that's going to work out. I don't know. I'm not judging it though. I mean, I guess hip hop is just going to age like everything else does, like jazz did and stuff like that. Because before the jazz artists used to be teenagers, they used to be like 14 and 15, and then they grew up and then they became the old people, right? So maybe that's it. Maybe hip hop will just be, heavily dominated by older people. And there are some, and I actually like that. I think that they have a right to express. I got a few friends that are rappers like Willie, and then another friend, a couple of my friends, Scarface and Ice Cube, did a song recently that was really good, and I sent Cube a text about it to just tell him I liked it, and so I think that that's fine, but I also think that there's something in society that doesn't always give the black man permission to just say, you know what, I'm 60 now, and so the stuff I did when I was 25 in the 1990s, I don't want to do that anymore. Like where I like examples like that too. I mean, I get it. I appreciate the nostalgia of like, let me go back and do what I did in 1998, and because people are going to want to see that, and I think that that's fine. But I also kind of it makes me think about that movie. I also kind of try to find examples of people where they say, I used to be that young guy who did the crazy stuff, but now I've evolved in some way, right? What does that evolution look like? What does that mean when you say, as Jen is saying, that's not me anymore? Now I am the 55-year-old version of me, and I'm more interesting than I was when I was 22, right? So I'm not gonna show up as a gray-haired 22-year-old and try to make you think that somehow it's 1997 still, because that's not it. And that is fits into something. There was a Duke professor I met once who told me about something called the infantilization of the black male. That the goal of society is to always make sure black men remain as children, that they never grow up, that they're always teenagers, they're always in their 20s, right? And so when you show up and you say, like because I think about that, right? I told my friend, I said, yeah, I like the verses. I said, but I kind of, in addition to seeing the black men on stage, there's like 50 of them on the stage, like, oh, nah, nah, like rapping and all that, and all that, and it's kind of like they're crowding the stage. It's like a metaphor for life to me because they're all crowding the stage because they're like, this is my chance to be in the sun. This is my chance to be seen. I think that's what it is. It comes down to being seen, right? My chance to be seen is to get on stage with 60 other dudes who are all trying to relive the 1990s because that's our only chance to really be um, like sort of respected or on some level. And you listen to, I mean, I'm be honest, like, the lyrics are a little bit embarrassing sometimes. Like, I can't even repeat the lyrics. You know what I'm talking about. And I'm not making fun of it at all. I'm not disrespecting it. None of that stuff. I want to make that clear, right? But it's like, okay, so are there other spaces so I then switch over, right? I go look at the Jewish community. Here you go. This is a good way to look at it, right? So imagine you got a bunch of Jewish men, and a bunch of the Jewish men are all, together to do something remarkable, something that left their mark on the world. And imagine if they were all on stage, bitch this, hold that, I kill a nigga, right? Just like all that rhetoric was happening on the stage, that would probably not be seen in the same way. Or imagine a bunch of Asian men getting together and doing what Asian men do best. What does that look like? Maybe it becomes like the mathematics Olympics, or building the best robot or the best rocket ship or something like that, or building the best business. It'd be a pitch competition for businesses or something, and they're all like there's tens of thousands of them all getting together with these extraordinary ideas that are going to revolutionize the future. Or if you just had like, if you think about the most prominent white males in America, they're controversial, but a lot of them are billionaires, right? You know, whether you're talking about Peter Thiel and or in the CEO of Palantir, and then sitting next to Mark Zuckerberg and Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and they're making these billion-dollar moves and they're creating millions of jobs in their community. I didn't see the same thing. And again, not to put all that pressure on No Limit Records to create a million jobs, because I like Master P. I met him as well at Lamar Tyler's event. Um, but I don't see that same level of industrialness and discipline and maturity that I might see in other spaces, not because they don't have the ability to do that, but because I don't know if that's seen. I think that there's just sort of this underbelly of invisible black men. There's millions of invisible black men who say, "Yeah, I was down with all the hip hop and everything when I was young, but now I'm a father. Now I'm about to be a granddaddy, or I am a grandfather, and I want to do something different. I want to go build the billion-dollar company or whatever." And there are men out there that are doing that. There are women out there that are doing that, but I don't know if they get seen as much. Does that make sense? Tell me if I said it in a way where I wasn't sounding uppity. I have to be careful because I get called an uppity Negro when I talk about black men being mature. Did I sound like did I have enough balance in my statement? If I wasn't balanced enough, let me make sure I rebalance that to make sure it's clear that I'm not saying hip hop isn't powerful and and artistically legendary and everything else. But I just really kind of am concerned about that. Like what do you do with the black male that's a really good rocket scientist? And do you celebrate that? Like, do you really pay attention to that in a way where it's not just like, oh, look at that one black guy who turned plastic into gasoline, right? It's like, what about those 10,000 black youth that are doing the same thing? Or you know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. So I would say that that to me, when I think about racism, that's what I see. I see this sort of categorization, or what you might call the ghettoization of black people. The ghettoization, it reminds me of when I was on the faculty of Syracuse, and they would say, "Oh yeah, we love black people. We have plenty of black people that teach here," but they would put them all in the same department. They would put them all in like Africana studies, right? So it's like I cannot see you when you show up as a black biologist. I cannot see you when you show up as a black political scientist. I don't see you when you show up as a black journalist. I only see you when you are black and you are in Africana studies, and that's it. Like, that's your little area. You can do what you want. You can run that, but don't you dare try to come and have some sort of significant say in the rest of the institution, because the first thing we're going to notice about you is that you're black. And if you're a little too black, then we're going to dismiss you before you ever get a chance to talk. So this is one of the reasons also why black institutional development is so important, because racism is so insidious to the point where it's like they see the I think blackness might be the first thing people see. And then others will sort of manipulate and utilize blackness to achieve their goals, right? Like, it's nothing for me to turn on Twitter and to hear a black Democrat telling me that the Republicans are racist. And I'm like, yeah, they probably are. And then to hear our black Republicans say, no, 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 Democrats are racist because they run a plantation. Yeah, 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 they probably are. And it's like interesting because it's like, okay, all of you are using race in a way that is advantageous to your broader agenda, but you're not really interested in race. What you're doing is you're taking the abused little girl, and you got two pimps fighting over the same little girl, right? So one pimp is saying he's mean to you, he punched you in the face. And she's like, yeah, he did punch me in the face. And then the other pimp is like, yeah, he's mean to you, but he sexually assaulted you, right? And she's like, yeah, he did assault me. So she has to pick which pimp she wants. And ultimately, the solution for the girl is not for her to pick the better pimp; it's for her to not have a pimp at all, right? And even with the No Kings protest that I saw, everyone's like, no kings, no kings, no kings. And I saw people, I listened to different commentary, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, Trump probably thinks he's a king for sure. So there's probably a reason to protest this. But then someone else was like, well, who's funding the No Kings protest? And they were pointing to all these billionaires that were paying all this money. And I said, oh, they're kings too, right? So it's not no kings that they want. It's like they just want you to have a different king, right? Just because I mean, the politicians are kings, the billionaires are kings too, right? So I kind of think that maybe, thinking beyond that and saying, okay, how do I at least become the king or the queen of my life? How do I become the king or queen of my family? How do we become the kings and queens of our community collectively, in a powerful, decentralized way where you may not know what the agenda is of your favorite politician. You may not know what the agenda is of somebody you see on TV. You may not know what my agenda is, but you know what your agenda is, right? You know what matters for you, right? You know what your family needs. You know what's going to make you happy. You know what's going to make you feel free. And if you don't know these things, you should probably investigate. That might be the first step. Like, what makes me happy? What does freedom look like? What is that? What life do I really want to create for myself, right? And then at that point, you become the king of that. And then at that point, you're so busy working to become the king or the queen of your own life that you ain't got time to worry about the No Kings protest down the street or somebody telling you it's Democrats, it's Republicans, it's this and this. No, I think if you, the greatest pathway to success I have seen in America is when people just focus on their own lives and figure out what the right moves are and make those moves. The right moves typically a lot money is huge in that because people who save money they tend to have more money. People who invest money tend to have more money. People who work together tend to have more money. People who start businesses have more money. And then people who make stable, intelligent family decisions tend to have more money. So there's a simple formula. It's not hard. It's not hard. What makes it hard is when I hear someone tell me about how we got to change the whole entire system. I had that depressing conversation with a white woman when I was 19, where she was telling me that fighting for black men was not the right way to go about it. That I have to eliminate poverty first. We have to eliminate poverty, and then there'll be equality, and then everyone will benefit. And I'm like, so you're telling me? And I just remember in my little 19-year-old brain thinking, shit, I gotta eliminate poverty. How the hell am I gonna do that? I can't eliminate poverty. Like, right? No, keep it simple. Get rid of the poverty in your own life. How about that? Can we do that? Can we eliminate poverty in our house? Can we do that? That's I think that's a good plan. All right, ready? Break. That's the plan, right? We're gonna eliminate poverty in our house. We're not going to do a bunch of dumb shit that's going to destroy things. We're going to think things through, and when we make decisions, I'm going to be nice to the people around me. That's a big one too. That's a real big wealth builder. Be humble, be kind to those around you. You got your teammates, treat your teammates well, and I guarantee you, if you do that, and then taking some knowledge, right, you're going to succeed with that. And it won't matter what's happening outside. It doesn't matter what the weather is outside if my house is sturdy and stable. If my house is sturdy, stable, warm, and well taken care of, then even if it's cold outside, I'm still going to be okay. It doesn't mean that these other things don't matter. It doesn't mean the politics is irrelevant. I'm not saying any of that at all. I'm saying that it's just start when they say politics starts local, I take that to the extreme. When people say all politics are local, they're talking about the city council and the mayor's office. No, local politics starts in your house, in your own life. That's how local I think it should start, and then you work your way outward. Once I take care of myself, then I take care of my family. Once I take care of my family, then I take care of my community. Once I take care of my community, then I'm gonna go down to City Hall and try to handle business out there. Once I handle business out there, then I go to the White House. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Like this sort of this upward, outward looking funnel, inductive. They call it inductive. Deductive is where you start big and you shrink in. Inductive is where you start small and you work out. You start granular. Start granular. What the hell's wrong with your life right now? What do you need to fix right now today? What do you need to deal with? Is it your weight? Have you not been exercising the way you should? Well, get your ass up and go do some jumping jacks right now today. Today is a perfect day for you to decide that you're going to change some habit that's been holding you back, right? What maybe your issue is you haven't been saving the way you want to. Okay, so start automatically deducting money out of your account, 5%, 10%, whatever you can afford, and just start doing that now. Tomorrow's Monday. Tomorrow's a trade. I haven't invested in the stock market yet because I've been too scared. Oh, go do it, please. Blackwealthmasterplan.com. Blackwealthmasterplan.com. There, the $5 a day plan is there. How to get started, all that stuff. Also, you can take the 5-year pledge. We talked about the 5-year pledge, where for 5 years you automatically deduct money, put it into your stock portfolio. I think the amount I suggested was if you can do 500 a month for yourself, for your future, do that. If you can't, do something less. But I think you should aim for the $300 to $500 number because most of you have a bill or two that is $300 to $500. Most of you have some bill that you're paying that's over that amount. And I've made the simple point to say that your future can never be less important than the car dealer. Your family should never be less important than the landlord. It should never be less important than whatever the hell it is you bought at the mall that caused your pockets to be empty. So make the pledge to yourself. Don't make it to me. Don't make it to the group. Make it to yourself and go do that. So if you want to join the pledge, text the word pledge to the number 87948. I'll send you a free training on exchange traded funds that I did. I did a breakdown of it for the students. I saved it. You can have it for free. So text the word pledge to 87948, and I'll send that to you immediately. That'll get you started. So pick that area that you just kind of need to fix, and just fix it slowly but surely. And remember this too: excellence is a subscription that you renew every fucking day. Excuse my French, I cussed again. I didn't mean to do that. But excellence is a subscription that you renew every single day. So get up in the morning, renew your subscription, get yourself in the right mindset, and get focused and make it happen. Get it done. And the reason you have to get it done is not just because it's going to be better for you. You got to get it done because there are people that are depending on you. Hey, you got kids. Your kids are heavily affected by what you choose to do or choose not to do. Right? Your spouse is affected. Your cousins, your family's affected. Your parents are affected. Like everybody around you is affected by what you do. So I think showing up for each other. What I do is what I choose to do. How what kind of man I choose to be affects a lot of you in here. So if I choose to show up weak and broken and shady and screwed up and unfocused, then that's going to affect everyone here. So when I renew my excellence subscription every morning, it's like, okay, boys, they're listening. What you say is going to reverberate. I said the word wrong, right? It's going to have a ripple effect, right, on lots of people, and so you got to show up in the right way. So sure, I do it on a certain scale. Every morning we have a few thousand people in here, but everybody in here has a sphere of influence. Every single one of you has somebody that's affected by what you choose to do and what you choose not to do. And I'm asking you to choose excellence. And here's another thing I guarantee you that is that if you subscribe to excellence in your life, which comes really down to self-improvement, just saying I'm going to be a little bit better today than I was yesterday, then what's going to happen is that your sphere of influence is going to grow. It's going to grow. Because it's not hard to convince other people um, that they want their lives to improve. It's not hard to bring certain truths to people because a lot of people are looking for the truth. A lot of people are confused. A lot of people are looking for some kind of a guidance. And if they find that you're serious about it and you're doing it well and you're making things happen, then they're going to want to copy that. Right. So my job is easy. I mean, think about it. Everybody loves money. Everybody cares about money. I'm like, whoa, guess what? I'm an expert in money. I know how money works. So it's not hard to get people to listen. It's like, oh, you're broke. Okay, let me help you with that. Right. So long story short, choose excellence. Thank you, Sherry. I see you in there, and I'm gonna quit talking. It was great to see you guys, and thank you for joining me down this crazy journey. I know I went in a lot of different directions, but I hope it was beneficial over time. Oh, and here's something that'll just kind of make you laugh. Let me show you something that Dr. Alicia made this. I thought it was kind of funny. So we have an Instagram page, Boyce and Alicia. You can feel free to look it up. And so she made this little video about red flags in relationships. Does anybody know who that is in the picture? Does anybody see? And I thought it was so funny when she talked to me about it. That's Jeffrey Dahmer, right? So she works with couples on relationships and stuff like that, and families and stuff like that. And so here's it. It's really short, so I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna share my audio. Here it is.
I met my new king, Jeffrey. He's famous.
So because we were talking about all the people that go into these relationships with these like major red flags, and like you're dating a serial killer, and you know that he's a serial killer, but you think he's changed because he comes to church now, and it's just kind of funny. So anyway, I thought that would be a good laugh because I know I've been kind of serious for a while, but anyway, but Alicia's website is coachingwithdralicia.com. She's a really good therapist, so feel free to go take a look at her. So coachingwithdralicia.com. All right, and one more thing too, for those of you that are doing stock options, we're having a prime session tonight to get ready for the week. So you should get a notification. If you're interested in options, you can also text that word options to the number 87948, and I'll send you a link to join the text options to 87948. All right, everybody. So have a good day. God bless you. I will see you all soon. Take care, everybody. Thank you. Peace.